Kathleen Donnelly Israel. Wow, what an inspiring woman. I'm not sure if I've never heard of the Camino. It's a walk. It's a 500 walk. Northern Spain. St. James, of course, went there as a pilgrim after Jesus died and didn't do the best job, and he was later buried there. And so we have pilgrims and other people that walk this 500-mile journey. There's all these kind of hostels along the way for those pilgrims, for those people walking it. So Kathleen did it. She had a terrible childhood, abusive father. She married a man who ended up getting Parkinson's disease and helped him for 17 years. And so her friend had done it earlier, so she decided to do it as well. The things she learns along the way and the people she meets are just very, very inspiring. You'll see in this conversation how she's just so much light, and she talks about vibration. She talks about her spirituality. She talks about her 4 guardians. This woman walked 500 miles by herself. Now, she'll tell you it wasn't by herself because she had her guardians with her, but it's absolutely incredible. She's in her 70s. She's full of life and just an inspiring woman. Kathleen is. I really enjoyed the conversation. She gives me energy. She inspires, and she'll do the same for you, I'm sure. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business and it lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Very, very excited to talk to you, Kathleen Donnelly. Donnelly Israel. Thank you so much for your time. Why is it so important that we create our own story?
Well, that's what we're doing. I mean, it's it's just like what's happening here. we whatever goes on in our life is our story. I think we have circumstances that bring us through our life, the things we get ourselves into, that we have to live through, and then there's the things we want to do. And then there's like, can you do it or not? So I don't think there's an option to creating our own story in our life.
Because you talk about, for a long time, you were letting others create your story.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, you get married, you don't know what you're going to get. And then, yeah. So, I mean, I had a hard childhood. I have post-traumatic stress disorder from my childhood. And so, I was pretty much, on survival mode in my childhood. And then, when I got married, it continued. And, so I mean, my husband didn't really like to do what I wanted to do. I don't know why. I think I was attracting that. That's what I think. And he was a willing participant. So I basically decided, well, we'll just find out what Ron wants to do, and then at least we can do something. So I used to do that. I mean, he didn't want to go dancing. So I used to go dancing with my girlfriend, and we would leave Ron, and her husband didn't want to go dancing either. So the men would stay home with the kids, and Carolyn and I would go dancing. And so, I mean, I did do some things I wanted to do. I mean, I was a Cub Scout leader, and the reason why is because I needed the Cub Scout meeting to be on this certain day at this certain time. And I figure, well, if I'm the leader, I can make it that time, and then I could get my kid. It was just at my house, so just I had 5 kids, and there was a lot of juggling around. And I didn't have 5 kids because I was doing what somebody else wanted. I had 5 kids because I wanted 9 kids. And when we got to 4, we were like, well, that's a lot of work, you know? So, and then our son didn't like being the only boy. So we tried again, and God was good. Thank you, God. We got a boy. So we didn't have to have 6. Oh yeah, I had the last one because the my son didn't want to be the only boy. Yeah, so I guess I was doing what he wanted.
Yeah, you mentioned a tough childhood. Your father was abusive, and there was issues there. I heard you talk about, and then of course your husband gets stricken with an illness. You're taking care of 17 years Parkinson's, which was tough on you as well.
Yeah, yeah. I went through my grief period right when he got his illness, and so I went through the stages of grief, when he got his illness, and I tried to help him get better. I bought this program from this guy in Australia who thought he could cure Parkinson's, but Ron wouldn't do it. And so I had to realize that he wanted to embrace his illness, whereas I wanted him to get better. He wanted me to accept him the way he was. And so when I figured it out, I mean, I can do that, right? So, so anyway, I became a caregiver.
It's amazing how people take those kinds of illnesses on. I had an uncle who had Parkinson's, and he did not want to get better, and he did not want to be a burden to anyone, and didn't want to eat in anything, and it's interesting how we all view those kinds of stories and how we interpret them.
Well, Ron was fine with burdening me. He was fine with that. He loved being cared for. He loved being waited on hand and foot. He couldn't walk and he couldn't talk at the end there. For like 8 years, he couldn't walk or talk.
Wow.
And so I was quite involved in his care. And we're not rich, so I mean, the poor people get helpers and stuff, but we didn't qualify for that. So so I got to do it.
So he passes, and really the crux of your book and this journey that you take in Spain, the Camino.
Right, right. So while Ron was sick, I had to be home, and so I did. I went online because I've been like going to therapists and stuff all my life, trying to get better, and so I went online and I listened to a bunch of enlightened thought leaders. And I feel like God was sending me to my healing because I think the first one was Donna Eden. And I bought her program and I did her program. And then it wasn't that interesting anymore. And God sent me another one. And I got Rika Zimmerman. And then I did her program, and anyway, I did, all these programs, and through all this time, I felt like I had learned some stuff that really helped me. And so after Ron died, I felt like I should write a book about it because I had learned some stuff, and maybe I could help some other people. But I did the Camino, and then when I got back, I'm like, oh, it's time to write the book. And I was just writing, and I thought, oh, I don't want to seem teachy. I didn't feel like
Mm.
an expert or anything, even though that's why I was doing it, because I was an expert, right? I studied all those years. So I remembered I told the people on the Camino all those things when I met people. They would have a problem. I would tell them, part of my teachings. And so I wrote my book about walking the Camino and telling people about those things.
You
And
mentioned, Kathleen, you mentioned God a couple times. I mean, how important is spirituality in your life?
yeah, I'm a I have always loved my faith. I'm a Catholic, and I have always loved my faith. Most of my friends went away from the church. I mean, I just had a class reunion, an eighth grade class reunion, and I think there were two people there that still go to church. You
Wow.
know, and but anyway, when I was a child, the church was a safe place, and when my home was not the safe place, and so I had really good feelings about the church, even though, sometimes they were doing the wrong thing. I was really used to adults doing the wrong thing.
Mm.
And so it didn't bother. It was safer than home, I guess I should say. And
Uh,
so anyway, when I grew up, I mean, I have never gone away from my faith. And so I just love my faith, and um yeah.
and really,
That's
that was part of. I'm sorry.
no, go.
That's part of doing this Camino. Now, I don't know anybody who's done it before. Uh, Please remind me what it is.
Yeah, the Camino Santiago is, well, way back in Jesus' time, like the apostle of Jesus, James, after Jesus died, they were out telling the world about Jesus, and he went to the Iberian Peninsula quite far. And he was telling people about Jesus, and nobody wanted to know about Jesus. And so he went back to Jerusalem, and they killed him, they martyred him. And then some people and angels and everybody, they all took him back to Spain and buried him there at the farthest area that he got to. So that's where they buried him. And then in the, like, I don't know if it was like the 9 to the 1200s, but anyway, they were trying to get the Moors out of Spain, and St. James appeared and helped them get the Moors out of Spain. And
Hmm.
everybody really liked St. James after that. So, and then they found his grave. I think it was one of these light in the forest stories. And so everybody was like, the grave of St. James, and they started doing pilgrimages to the grave of St. James, and they built the giant cathedral, and it's a big thing now. In the 80s, a priest decided to resurrect the Camino again. I think it went into disuse, and so they were like finding where they had a book where it was, and they found that it was mostly still available for people to walk on. I think they built freeways over it a couple of times, and so you have to go under freeways sometimes to stay on the Camino.
Hmm.
So yeah, they it's an old Roman road basically, and it goes through towns, it goes over mountains, it goes, it's 500 miles across northern Spain is the French way, which is the first time I went the French way. And a lot of people in Europe, they just go out their front door and walk, from their house to Santiago. But of course, us Americans, we have to go across the pond. I took a plane and a train and a bus to get there. I, so yeah, about 1/3 of the people who are on the Camino do it for religious reasons. So the rest of the people are just out there to do something strenuous or to do something wonderful, or they
Mm.
heard you meet people there. There's all kinds of good things about walking the Camino. It's so beautiful. Some of the areas it goes through, it's like the forest primeval or something. And yeah, meeting people. So one of the big questions on the Camino is, why did you come?
Mm.
And then you tell each other why you came, and it's very interesting stories you get from people why they decided to go do that. It's a walking meditation. You're just walking for, like, I mean, I was on the Camino for 66 days. Usually people do it in like 35 days, but um, I decided to take Sunday off because I was walking on Sunday, and I would get into the albergue and I would just flop on my bed and fall asleep, and then I'd be like, "Oh, when's mass?" And I missed it. So I just thought, well, I'm on a holy pilgrimage. I need to go to mass on Sunday at least, and so that's what I decided to go into a town and sleep. I had to go to a hotel instead of the albergues, only let you stay one night. So I had to go to a hotel, and I'd stay there Saturday night. So Sunday I would be in the town. I would like be a tourist or something. And then I would leave Monday.
When people ask you why you were on the Camino, what would you say?
Why? Well, I would say my husband died in August and my mother died in December. And so it was April after that I went, end of March, April. And so I would just tell him about, taking care of my husband. And actually, while I was caring for Ron around 2013, my girlfriend went on the Camino and she shared it on Facebook. And I, I just thought she was doing something very special for herself. And I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. When Ron dies, I'm going to go on the Camino. And so that's what I did.
And what were some of the answers that you received when you asked others why they're
Well,
on the Camino?
yeah, this guy was very sad, and I asked him why he was sad, and he said that three of his friends had died in rapid succession, all independent of each other, and he was so devastated he couldn't do
Wow.
his life anymore, and they and somebody told him he should go do the Camino, so he did. And I don't know if it was his dad who told him that or who, because at the end of the Camino, his dad met him and walked the last 3 days with him.
Mm.
So it might have been that. Um, there was another guy. I was in a monastery, and it was dinner time, and I usually like to prepare my own food because I have some food allergies. But this place, they didn't have a kitchen; they fed you. So there I was eating spaghetti, and I can't have flour, right? But anyway, sometimes you just got to do it. So I was sitting across from this guy, and I asked him why he came. And he said that he was in the military and he had a couple weeks off, and he decided to do the Camino. And I'm like, oh, how nice. And then he asked me, and I said, well, I took care of my husband for, I guess he was sick for 18 years or 17 years, but the last 8 years it was totally disabled. And so he died in, August, and my mother died in December. Anyway, so he was just like so blown away that I had taken care of my husband. He said, "Wow, that is amazing." And I told him, "Yeah, when I got married, I was 20 years old. And I remember the night before I got married, I thought, you know what? My life after tomorrow is not going to be my life anymore. It's going to be
Mm.
Ron and Mai's life." And when we said "till death do us part" on our, on our wedding day, I was in. There was no way I wasn't going to care for him. And so So this lady next to him nudged him with her elbow and said, "Tell her the rest." And I'm like, okay. And so anyway, he told me that he had gotten married and they had a little girl. And he just decided that he had gotten married too soon and he left her.
Mm.
And I, so he kind of like, was sheepish about it. And so I told him, well, if your wife marries someone else, finds someone to love her and marries someone else, that man is not going to love your little girl like you do. And he said, that's very true. And so, anyway, I think my angels just pushed me in the right direction so I could be sitting across from that guy. And I told him about the Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of Ho'oponopono?
I was going to mention it. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so I taught him the Ho'oponopono, actually wrote it down for him on a little piece of paper. And that lady, she took a picture of it so she could have it too. But it's a Hawaiian healing technique for the family. And you can do it with the other person, but you don't have to. You can just do it all by yourself. And what it does is it loosens our binds to the people who are signed up to ruin our life, basically. And so it starts out, I love you. It's I love God. God loves me. God loves the other person loves God. And if you can say, I love them, then say it. But if you can't, you don't have to. I love you. I'm sorry. And it's not, I'm sorry I did anything, but I'm sorry the situation exists between us. And it's please forgive me. And it's please forgive me for what's going on in me that caused me to attract this. It's not forgive me, I did something, but there's something in me that caused me to attract this irritability or some other kind of thing that we don't like from this person. So they actually pushed our button that we already had. So please forgive me for what's going on in me that caused me to attract this. And then thank you for showing me this so I could heal. If this person didn't push this button in me, I couldn't find the button that I need to heal. I need to heal this thing in me. And the big I love you. I love God. God loves me. God loves the other person. The other person loves God. Maybe by then you can say, I love them and they love me. I mean, you can do it with the other person, but you don't have to. It's such magic. Really, it's amazing.
Is there a situation it can't solve? Excuse me. Is there a situation it cannot solve? It seems like a very holistic and great approach.
Yeah. So I was on vacation with my husband. We were in Richmond, Virginia. So I was laying in bed and my monkey mind kept bringing in all this stuff to think about that was awful. And so I was like, I'll do the Ho'oponopono. So I was doing the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And, I was doing the whole thing. And I was feeling shame. And I was like, oh, this is wrong. This is not about shame at all. And I was feeling it. So I changed it up a little bit. I call it my extended Ho'oponopono. And when I say, please forgive me, then I said, I forgive me. And I forgive it up. And I felt this giant refrigerator-sized pain come out of my heart and go up to God.
Wow.
And yeah, well, that's what I said. Oh my goodness. And so anyway, I was just going, whoa, that's cool. And so, of course, I was laying there the rest of the night, kept thinking all this terrible stuff. And every time something would come in, I would do the extended Ho'oponopono on him and get more pain out of I had pain in my heart. I mean, I was in my 60s, right? And I have been pain in my heart from day 1 to 60. So I had a lot of pain to get out of my heart. And I'm still doing it. But I'm really a lot better now. that I've been doing it for a long time. When you do the Ho'oponopono, you got to remember that you've been attracting whatever you've been thinking about and saying about. You've been attracting the effects of that in your life. And so when you start with the Ho'oponopono, you got to realize you're still living that other stuff. So it takes a while for your life to get changed, maybe. But your life does get changed, but you have to just keep doing it. It's one of those soaking prayers that you need to soak it in.
Mm.
But like when I go out to water my garden, I put the hose on one plant and I go, I love you. I'm
Mm.
sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And then I put it on the next plant. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So it's just like it's a thing to do that just benefits everybody in your life because they don't have to be assholes anymore. They
Mm.
it looses your binds with them,
Mm.
looses it up. Mhm.
Kathleen, do you meditate?
I do sometimes. I remember sometimes. I mean, I think my meditation now is saying the rosary.
Mm.
So I do sit there. My yeah my I did the Phoenix Project, yeah, and they taught us how to meditate. So every once in a while, I'll just go in there and just sit there and do what they told me to do.
Mm.
Hmm. Do you
I
meditate?
I do. I do. Not as often as I should, and I journal as well. But I think the Ho'oponopono is a type of meditation. It's kind of constructed and it's kind of focused, perhaps adjacent.
Right. And the Camino is a walking meditation, just
Uh,
like one foot in front of the other for, a long time.
500 miles. You talked about you did it alone, but the Camino trail that is, but you say that you had four guardians with you.
Yeah. So I have four guardian angels that I know personally. And okay, so the first my my kid we lived in this neighborhood that had a lot of Catholic families in it. And one of my neighbors, she just made up this cool thing where she it was called the Soldiers of Mary. And I was there as like crowd control and extra parent, and so she had the little kids coloring this coloring sheet about the guardian angel, like the angel standing by the children who are about to go over a bridge or something, it's like that picture.
Mm.
And so I'm an artist. I love to color, so I was coloring it too. And then she said, does anybody want to meet your guardian angel? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to meet my guardian angel. So she said, just sit there quietly and ask your guardian angel what their name is. And the first thing you hear in your mind, it's going to be in your imagination mind. First thing you hear, that's their name. So I sat there, closed my eyes. Okay, what's your name, guardian angel? And I got Lunk. And I'm like, Lunk is a name for a guardian angel? And then I got this like image in my mind of little me sitting on a bench with this giant angel sitting next to me with his arm around me. And his name is Lunk. And I thought, wow, well, he looked like a bouncer or something. So I
Mm.
thought, well, maybe in my life I needed a bouncer. So that was my first angel. And then the next year they did the same thing. And this time I sat there, okay, guardian angel, what's your name? And I got Mary Bell. And it was this flittering around, flying, happy, gregarious angel with curly hair. And, she was just a happy angel. And I thought, well, I guess that's balance, Lunk, Mary Bell. And so that's those two angels. And then I was hiking in my neighborhood and I smelled skunks. And I was just like, oh man, I don't want to meet a skunk. So I asked God to send me an angel to protect me from skunks. And I got this image in my mind of these two angels with their wings up over me, and we were walking, and they had their wings over me like that.
Hmm.
And one of them, her name was Aloysia, and she had black and red robes. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange for an angel to have black and red robes. And then I thought, well, I live right by San Diego State University, and that's the school colors. So I thought, well,
Hmm.
okay, black and red robes on Aloysia. And then the other one's name was Pionomi, and she was wearing this gossamer sage green with purple flowers robe. Uh, and yeah, her name was Pionomi, and they just walk with me. So I brought all of them with me to Santiago. I mean, to the road, to the way. And so I wasn't afraid at all. Actually, I am afraid of dogs, but I didn't find any dogs on the French way. I found dogs when I walked from Lisbon to Santiago a couple of years later. And so I found some dogs, and they were barking at me like they were all in front of me. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I started walking towards them, and they, with the teeth, and I was like, oh man. And so I just started screaming, and this guy came out and told the dogs to go away so I could keep walking. I mean, I didn't know what to do. So there you go.
That
But
is absolutely wonderful. And what surprises did you learn from the Camino? Were there any surprises?
yeah, I thought, when I was walking, I thought that I would like to just stay at, well, the albergues are along the way. They're places where you can sleep. They have a bunch of bunk beds and a big room and a bathroom.
A hostel,
Some, hmm?
like a hostel?
Like a hostel, only not like a hostel because it is just one big room. I mean,
Ah,
there were a couple of them that had little rooms with maybe they used a house. They had like 4 bunk beds in one room or something, or 3 or 2. But most of them were just a giant room. They had taken the walls out, I guess. And you go in there, and you have to show them your pilgrim passport. You get a pilgrim passport, and every day they stamp it so they can see that you've been on the Camino all the time. They're not going to
hmm.
let other people in there. Just pilgrims get to stay there. And so you have to show them your government passport, and then you have to show them your pilgrim passport, and they stamp it for you. And then they give you a bed, a bunk. You have to call like the day ahead because sometimes I got to places, and they said, I'm sorry, we don't have any more room. And I said, well, I have a reservation. What's your name? They looked it on. Okay, you can come in. So you have to call a day
Oh,
ahead. Um, so I got a feeling I'm not answering your question, but anyway, we're going down a good road.
surprises. Yeah.
um, so what was the question?
Surprises. What
Oh,
surprises did you
surprises.
find?
Okay, so I thought, okay, there were a lot of monasteries that had albergues, and I went to this monastery, and I stayed there. And in the morning, I was making my breakfast, and the guy came in, and he started yelling at me to get out. And I was just like, usually they'll tell you have to be out by 8:30, you have to be out by
Mm.
8, something like that. You have to be out by 9. This guy did not say when I had to be out. And so I just looked at, he was talking in Spanish, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but I kind of knew what he was talking about, but I just kind of ignored him. And so I made my breakfast, and then I started making my lunch to take with me. And he came in with his eyes bugging out, and he was he was really yelling at me and telling me that I had ruined his life. That he needed to get home to take care of. to his family. And there I was, he couldn't clean the kitchen, blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, I finished up and went and got my stuff together, and I was leaving, and I went to go into the bathroom, and he had the broom and the mop in an X across the bathroom, the ladies' room. And he said, "Out now." And so I was just like trying to imagine leaving for the road without going to the bathroom first. So anyway, I just grabbed my pack and I walked out, and I very carefully walked down the stairs because I was really careful. I didn't want to hurt myself. And I went out into the garden, and I didn't know which door to go out. There was a lady down there, and she said, "Oh, go out there." And so I saw a bathroom. In the little ante room on the way out. So I went and used it. And then when I came out, that guy was standing there with his hand out like this. And he had on a safety pin, I had my medals, I had a bunch of medals right here. And I guess when I threw on my pack, they flew off. And so he was holding them like this. And he was like, he was sorry. Like he realized what he had done to a holy woman who had medals on. And so I looked at him and I'm like, "Oh, where's St. Jerome?" One of the medals was missing. And so he went out in the garden. He started looking through the grass for my St. Jerome medal. And then after a while I said, "Oh, well, I guess somebody else gets St. Jerome, And so, but I mean, I went to a monastery to have a holy experience, right? And I got thrashed, and and it was just a surprising experience. That's all. And sometimes the beauty on the Camino was surprising. Oh my gosh, you're just walking through these green pastures with forests on your sides, and like I just remember the ground was covered with little tiny flowers that that were hanging down like little dancing ladies or something. And then there was like a tiny little oak tree just must have just come up with two little leaves, and you could tell they were oak leaves. And it was just incredible. And then you walk across a river on a wooden bridge that's very old, and just amazing. Walking through, like, you have to walk through an area that's got water in it, and there's just a bunch of rocks to walk on, and that's the road. There's no other road, so you have to go across on the rocks. And anyway, it was just it was lovely. What else was surprising? Oh yeah, this it was surprising when people got mad at me. And somebody told me, on the Camino there's grouchy people, and they're there to help you grow, right? And so I was in the kitchen another time, and I knew I had to be out by 8, but I had my potato. I used to take a potato with me, and I'd stick it in the microwave before I left. And then it would be warmth for me because it was April. It was kind of cold. Be warmth for me, and then I would eat it along the way. And so I was in there. I had 4 minutes left on my potato, and this lady came in and said, "Get out," and I'm like, I pointed to the microwave, or she probably said it in Spanish. I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah, so I had to wait for my potato, and I took it and I wrapped it in my bandana and left. And she was like, threw up her arms, and she said, "Madre de Dios, Madre de Dios." She just kept saying that. And I was like, well, I don't know if she was saying it to me or she saying it to herself, or I don't know, but it was interesting. You know what else was really great? Seeing the white horses along the road. Because over there, they for years, I mean, even from the beginning of the Camino, they had the Knights Templar who protected the pilgrims. I mean, there was a lot of pilgrims in the 12, 13, hundreds. And so they used to go out there because there was robbers. People would, go on the Camino and get robbed and brutalized and stuff, and they would be out there on their white horses, saving the pilgrims. And so there were a lot of white horses along the Camino, just out in the pasture, but I got delighted whenever I saw them.
Hmm. So you got back from your first trip, I believe, and you wrote
Yeah.
Wisdom on the Camino. What do you hope the reader takes away from reading the book?
Well, I hope they get my teachings, because that's what I wrote the book for
Mm.
anyway. But actually, most people don't get the teachings. They're like, "There's teachings in there,"
Mm.
and so maybe I need to like make gray area with teaching or something. I don't know, but uh, yeah, I and also just the beauty of the Camino. It's about my adventures,
Mm.
about my adventures on the Camino. Uh, it was quite an adventure. I got sick a couple of times, maybe 3 times. I got sick. What? I got a traffic ticket on the way on, like the night before I left on the Camino. I got a traffic ticket. I was so
Mm.
mad. My brother wanted me to come out to his house, and he wanted to show me the way. I told him I seen the way already. He wanted me to come out there. So there I was. And on the way home, I was so tired. I was having a hard time getting over 50 miles an hour. So I pushed on the gas. And then I realized I was going 80. And I thought, oh, you better slow down. And then I saw this cop car out of the corner of my eye. And I was just like, oh, man. He gave me a ticket. So I had to do traffic school on the Camino. And so yeah, I had, and the albergues don't have good Wi-Fi. They just have, crummy Wi-Fi. So when I would stay in a hotel, then I would go online and do the traffic school. And so I did the traffic school
That sounds a
on,
great title of a book, Kathleen. Traffic School
on
on
the
the
Camino.
Camino.
I should have called it that, huh? That was difficult. Anyway, it's all in the book. I met some wonderful people on the Camino, and I met some people I needed to get rid away from on the Camino.
Mm.
And
Mm.
the cool thing about going by yourself is that there's no drama. All there's no but drama, nobody to have drama with, and I appreciated that, and I loved not having drama, because I would see people like couples or people, and they would be like, you could feel the thickness in their relationship, and it was like, oh man. So anyway, I was glad about that, and I didn't have too much trouble with my angels. They just sort of
Mm.
were there for me.
Kathleen, what
So,
motivates you?
what motivates me? Oh, well, I like to have fun. I mean, what motivated me in my life was my kids. I wanted to be there for my kids. I wanted to, you know, be there for my husband. We had some pretty amazing things that we did. We put our kids through private school all the way through high school. That's expensive.
Wow.
And like when our first child got old enough to go to the private high school, uh, we used our tax return money. It was $1,500, cost $1,500. Boom. And then when the second one came up, we were like, okay, so we need to make a decision here. Are we going to send him? We don't have 2 tax returns. And my husband made the decision. God bless him. He just decided. We filled out the paperwork and sent it over to St. Augustine's, and and then the very next day, Ron got an opportunity to go to another country, and they would pay him a 35% bonus.
Wow.
Wow. I know. It's like, thank you, God. I guess, he just had to step out in faith for that to happen. And so he, we had 5 kids. So, they all went through private school. We had one that didn't like it, and it was difficult to pay all that money for her who didn't like it. So we let her go to the public school. So
Hmm.
so anyway, but yeah. We could, we used to go to the old Globe Theater and see the plays. And when we first got married, we saw all the plays. We got a package and we saw all the plays. And then when they got into grade school, we're like, okay, well, we're just going to see the Shakespeare plays. And then when they got into high school, we're like not seeing plays anymore.
Hmm.
I became a volunteer. It wasn't during that time, but when Ron was closer to when Ron was ill, I became a volunteer at the Old Globe, and so we got to see the plays too. I used to. He loved going to the theater. That was a blessing from our marriage. He loved the theater. Yeah. Remember one time we went to the theater. He was couldn't walk, couldn't talk, and uh, when we got home, he was laying down and he started singing.
Hmm.
And, going to the theater, it was so exciting for him that it just brought that song out of him. So, I mean, the arts are very valuable
Powerful.
for our
Yeah.
health.
How do you measure success, Kathleen?
How do I measure success? Uh, success. Well, well, when I finished the Camino, that was success. When
Hmm.
I, finished the book, that was success. I mean, you go after a goal. When our kids were all done with high school, that was success. Not everybody graduates from high school. I was surprised how many people do not graduate from high school.
Hmm.
But it wasn't, I didn't, it's a good thing I didn't know about that, huh? Because it was like expected. My mother, when I graduated from high school, she said to me, "Okay, Kathleen, you owe me 2 years of college, and then you can do whatever you want." I think that's because she went to 2 years of college, right?
Ah.
So I went to 2 years of college. I did 2 years of college in 2 years. I was an art student, and the art classes were 1 unit, and I had to take 15 units.
Wow.
I mean, I had the, biology and all that stuff too, but I mean, I was going to school from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And I had a job too. And I worked at the Wiener Schnitzel by school. So I would go to school in the morning. I worked at the Wiener Schnitzel the lunch break. I went to school in the afternoon. I went to the Wiener Schnitzel for dinner break. And then I went back and had an evening class.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I made it happen. I don't know. A lot of, when I was younger, I was not paying attention. I
Hmm.
was tuning out. And it's amazing that I learned the stuff I did. It's totally
Hmm.
amazing. When I was in high school, I was doing typing class, and I was like 25 words a minute with 5 errors. That's like a D, I think.
Hmm.
And but when I was an adult, I was studying graphic design, and they wanted me to type on this typesetter way back when they had typesetters. And all of a sudden, I could type. I mean, I didn't. I mean, I must have learned it back then, but I just wasn't
Hmm.
paying attention. And it went in, and so I can type without looking. It's amazing.
So Kathleen, when I started my business back in the '90s, I was working way too hard, and I wasn't paying attention to myself. And before you know it, I found myself up to 340 pounds. The doctor said to me, if my daughter was just born, said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see her graduate. So I spent the next 7 months. I lost about 130 pounds. And
Wow,
when
good
people,
job.
yeah, yeah. And when people ask me how I did it, I could tell they want some kind of secret. And I just say discipline. That's how I lost it.
Ah,
I focus, discipline.
focus, yeah.
That's what did it. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
Well, being Catholic takes discipline, I tell you.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
everything you do takes discipline. I mean, I gained a whole bunch of weight too, and I had to lose it. That took discipline. I really focus. I mean, I learned this phrase when I was young. That's off focus. That's off focus. And
Mm.
I'm like, okay, well, fix it. Get on focus. And really, since I wasn't paying attention, it was hard to focus. But I just believe that God has led me through my life, and I I came here to be a human. I Before I was born, I was a low vibrational spirit out in the universe with God, and I wanted to be close to God, but God has such a high vibration, it just wasn't working.
Hmm.
And so I had heard that if you go into the earth, you can you can you can raise your vibration because you can do unconditional love on earth. And so, even knowing that I was going to attract a really crappy life with my low vibration, I decided to come in anyway because I wanted to raise my vibration. And all my life, I didn't know that's what I wanted to do, but it was a focus of my life. I wanted to be happy, and I saw that everybody else got good stuff. I used to say, I don't get the good stuff. Everybody else gets the good stuff. And I didn't realize that my spirit had a focus. My spirit
Mm.
had a focus to raise the vibration. I mean, I didn't know it. I was just doing what I was doing and experiencing what I was experiencing. And so when when Ron got sick, I think God said, "Okay, Kathleen, it's your turn."
Mm.
And so that's why He led me to all those enlightened thought leaders to raise my vibration. And I think that the reason why I had to keep going to new teachers is because this teacher would raise my vibration to this point, and then I would need another teacher because that was their vibration. I had to get another teacher, and they would raise me up. And I just kept raising my vibration, and so things started making sense. And I was a sad person. I mean, it's a good thing I was beautiful when I was young. Nobody would have married me. I just had a sad face. And really. And anyway, so my big goal, I remember in my 50s, my big goal was to have my resting face be a face with a smile on it.
Mm.
I mean, I asked God. I kept looking at people. I mean, I would go around to pictures and think and see, well, what's their face doing? They're smiling. What is their face doing? And I noticed that a lot of them had their teeth showing. So I started smiling with my teeth showing. And I was studying, and then when I got to the unconditional love, well, I had plenty of adversity in my life, and you can't even do unconditional love unless you have adversity, because it's easy to
Mm.
love people who love you, but you have to love the people that are not loving, to love the people that hurt you. That's a trick. That's unconditional love, and that really raises your vibration. The other thing is praise raises your vibration. I mean,
Mm.
I praise God. I mean, I was looking for ways to praise God. And I went online and I put in praise, And, I got all these songs and I started listening to them, but really they weren't praise, they were supplication
Mm.
and thanking. And I was looking for praise. So I just went through these songs and I took out all the praise words. And then I went to the Bible and I was looking for praise. Isaiah has a lot of praise in it, and the Psalms. Anyway, so I just wrote this big long thing and I recorded it and I play it for myself before I go to bed at night. So
Mm.
all these praise words. And the Gloria in church, in the Mass, the Gloria, that's totally praise. Well, I had to change a few things to make them praise, because there is a bit of a supplication, but then I just put you in front of the ask instead of saying, please, do this, you do this, so it changed
Mm.
it a bit. So I'm really kind of really, I'm looking for praise words. Because I had there was a lady when I was a younger woman, there was a lady in my life, and she was maybe my age now, and she showed me she wrote, that's what she did. She wrote praise words, and she would go outside and look at the trees and write praise words about, the nature and stuff. And she showed that to me, and that was my inspiration to do that. I was looking for praise. And you can praise people too. It works too. You can praise people. Praising is a good thing. I mean, I know I've met people that think you need to tell your kids they're bad so they'll be good. That doesn't
Mm.
work. No. You need to praise them. And yeah.
Well, Kathleen, let me praise you by saying you increase my vibration. I mean, I was so excited when you accept this. Your light is so positive and so contagious. You inspire. I'm not sure if you realize that, but you need to hear it. You inspire, and your way of self-reflecting inspires others, certainly me, to do the same. So I want to thank you for that, and I thank you so much for your time today. I was so excited when you accepted this. And how can we get in touch with you if anybody listening wants to do so?
Well, I have a website, and it's wisdomonthecamino.com. And you can contact me through my website. I have my book here,
Yep.
Wisdom on the Camino. It's kind of dog-eared. I've been reading it, been working on it. um, it's got a really great cover. So if you buy the paperback, you can have the cover too. But anyway, if you get the digital copy, you should read it, because I get paid per page. They don't just give us the
Mm.
money. You have to or page through it or something, But anyway, it's Wisdom on the Camino, a spiritual journey sharing forgiveness and possibilities to inspire the rest of your life. And I just really believe that we need to live into the possibilities that exist for us in our life. God wants us to have free will, and we need to go do that. Do the stuff we want to do. And yeah, I know people that are afraid to travel. I don't know why I'm not afraid to travel. I'm not afraid. um, but anyway, and the adventures in the book are kind of fun. I mean, I enjoyed writing that book. I just enjoyed it so much, and I was reading it to my cousin. You have to beta read to somebody,
Sure,
and
sure.
I asked her. I said, Linda, is anybody going to want to read this? And she said, Kathleen, I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face. Yes, they're going to want to read it. So, also on the page across from the table of contents, it says, it's over here. Read this first, and uh, like, people told me that I should put my pictures in the book, but I was just like, yeah, and then it'll be $50 for the book. So I made a website with galleries and portfolios. Like, when you read the book, you can look at the pictures in chapter 1. You read read chapter 1 and go on to chapter 2. Um, but you have to double opt in. I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way the world is right now. Anyway, you could get the book and look at the pictures, and it's really beautiful, beautiful.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Kathleen, for your time. So it's Wisdom on the Camino, CAMINO.com.
Right.
And there's links there to buy the book. We'll provide an Amazon link to do so as well. And you're also on Facebook and Instagram, and also LinkedIn, I believe. I think we connected
Yeah,
there.
I have to. I'm an old lady. I have to
Oh,
just go
come
do
on.
those things.
Yes, yes,
I have to
yes,
make
yes.
myself do that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Kathleen. If I'm ever in that Southern California area, San Diego area of yours, perhaps we'll get together and have a cup of tea.
That would be lovely. I would love that.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. You be well.
I know you will too. Bye.
Bye now. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciple Conversations.